Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It's Thursday, June 13th, 2019. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me once again.
What's up?
Today we are going to bring you our tight end sleepers for 2019 as we continue our trek towards super teamdom.
Yeah.
And giving you sleepers for the 2019 season.
You take all the sleepers in the first 3 rounds.
Every single
Then your
one.
team will be super.
It's true.
And you'll finally beat old Jimmy across the office with his smirk look and his 5 championship trophies.
5 championship trophies. Oh, boy. Before we get into our quick question, follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Subscribe wherever you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. On YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Click the bell. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, too. That's a place you should subscribe as well. Make sure you leave a review and tell people, as many people as possible. I don't have a marketing campaign other than social media, so share.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question for you to start the show. What is your favorite pick to have in fantasy football drafts? So you're sitting there and you're randomizing your draft selection.
Yeah.
And you want to pick the pick that you want.
Okay. Is this
maybe you're in a league and they do there was one league I saw. They do a competition and the winner of all these competitions gets to pick where they go.
Yeah.
Or if you're like the worst team in the league, you get to pick your selection, then you just go back from there.
Okay.
So if you had the opportunity to pick where you were going to select in a redraft league, snake draft.
Is this for this year?
Any year.
Okay.
Just the pick that you would want. Which one would it be?
Okay, so for any year and for this year especially, though, it'd probably be number 4. Your spot, your sweet spot.
That's my spot.
So number 4.
I'm drafting 2 this year. Frig.
Number 4, number 5, number 6, like that kind of range.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle. You're not going to get bitten by not having a pick for 20-something picks.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in the middle, you're always going to have a pick in the middle of each round. So that's going to help you out. For this year, as an example, if you're picking 4, I think that's just the perfect sweet spot because, Barkley's probably going to be off the board. Elliott's going to be off the board. But you're probably going to get Kamara or McCaffrey. And if one of those guys are somehow off the board, that means Zeke or Barkley's falling to you at 4.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to get one of those elite running backs, and then you're going to come right back in the second round, and there's still going to be like Odell Beckham or some star receiver there in the second round.
Yeah.
So I think this year, and even in most years in general, you want the middle of the draft. This year in particular, I'm looking at number 4.
Yeah, I think for me, most of the time it is.
Is it number 4? You have the same as me?
Yeah, it's number 4. 4 or 5. I don't normally, for some reason, I don't normally pick at 5. There's never been a draft.
You had
and I do like hundreds of mock drafts, and I do all kinds of I think I had 12 leagues last year, and I for some reason never landed the 5th pick.
And I bet you landed the 4th pick at least 10 times.
Yeah, there are people out there who like the turn pick too, 101 or 110.
See, I get why they do.
Yeah.
Because then you can get 2 really good players back to back.
At 104, 105, or 106, you're obviously reducing the amount of picks that you have. Like if you do one of those leagues where you were last place the year before and you get to pick what pick you're going to get this year. Mm-hmm. If I was that guy, I would pick 4 or 5 probably. You could always do it depending on whether what your league was looking like at that particular moment. But obviously ADP changes, so you got to pick the best pick. I think the one with the least amount of switching that happens is probably 5, I believe. But like at 104, you have 9 picks until your next pick, and then when it flips, you do 11. You know what I mean? It's like it's the least amount. And when you're talking about not having that many picks in between what you're actually trying to attempt to do, it makes it easier. You get more players instead of having to wait 20 picks or 17 picks in the case of the second overall.
Because then, like, let's say you're picking, sadly, where I'm picking in our draft, which is 10th overall in a 10-team league. I'm going to get 2 very good players, no matter what it is. But I'm going to miss out on a juicy third round.
Yep.
That has a lot of good talent this year.
Definitely.
And I'm going to be sitting there with the runt of the litter in the end of the third round and then early fourth round. But I think you would rather have your guy in the first round. There's going to be good guys in the second round. There's plenty of good players still in the third round.
Right.
I'd rather get those 3 guys than get someone at the end of the first, early second, and then pretty much miss out on the third round.
Now, if we were talking about this year's draft in particular,
which is kind of what I'm phrasing.
Yes. For me personally, this year's draft, I would want 107. And that's a creepy.
Really?
It's a weird pick. But the reason why I want 107 is because every time I mock draft, you have these are the class of running backs that you generally have at this pick. David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley. You got guys like Marlon Mack, Josh Jacobs. There's so many running backs in the first 3 or 4 rounds on the board. Like, you could arguably go draft James Conner with 107 and then flip to the next round and get Todd Gurley.
You could do that.
You would have, and like, that's crazy. And still go into the third round and get, a decent wide receiver and a decent, 2 decent wide receivers in a row. Like, so for me, I've been looking at that pick. 106, 107 would be perfect for me for this year. Obviously, ADP changes, so that can change. This is why I'd probably take 104 or 105 regardless, because you get your tier 1 running back, and then you can go into the next round and you still get away with getting your wide receiver, and you can still get a good running back in the third round, and so on and so forth. So I think 104 is probably the best pick that I would snag, but it gets interesting when you're talking about picking. And for me, like, I hate the turn pick. You also, with these mid-round picks, you can actually like kind of follow along a little bit in terms of, like, if you have 110, you have to ignore, or 101, you have to ignore all ADP and just get your guy.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when you're in the middle round, you kind of get to play the game. Okay, what are the next 9 picks going to look like? What are the next 11 picks going to look like? What guys may come off the board? You can kind of play the draft game a little bit, whereas at 110, you're just hoping.
Yeah,
you're just crossing your fingers that your guy is there. Yep.
And if he's not, you better have a plan B. You better have a plan C.
Yep. So it's very, very difficult to draft at the turn pick, which is most of the time why the last place team usually gets it.
Yeah.
But let's move into our tight end sleepers for 2019. We are going to go over a lot of different tight ends through the entire show, and it's going to get interesting real fast. So I'll start off with a tight end that I have loved for quite some time. I know you don't have that same affinity. I ranked him higher on my rankings. I ranked him higher on my rankings. So be prepared.
You moved him up?
I did.
Of course, him up.
I did. Jack Doyle. I have been truthing Jack Doyle as a sleeper for a while. Here's the thing. The snap share for Jack Doyle when he was on the field was higher for him than Trey Burton. Not Trey Burton, Eric Ebron. I have been a hater of Eric Ebron for quite some time, but I absolutely love...
Is that why you're a hater of Eric Ebron? Because you just love Jack Doyle?
Yes. No. No, I think here's the thing, is that for fantasy football, when you're looking at guys that succeeded the previous year, I think you have to look at efficiency. And so for me in particular, Eric Ebron was extremely efficient. He was one of the most efficient tight ends in the league. And when you talk about efficiency, there is always a regression when you have an over-efficient offense, or an over-efficient player. For example, you look at the Seattle Seahawks. Last year, the connection between Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, that was crazy. The amount that they only threw it 70.
He never got a lot of
He
targets.
had like 60 He had like 60 receptions on the entire year, but still came down with 10 touchdowns and almost 1,000 yards. When you're not going to do that again. A guy who's getting 60 targets does not catch 10 touchdowns. It's a similar situation to Eric Ebron. He gets less snap share in the offense. Now that might change this year, but I don't think it will. He gets less snap share. He gets less target share. And I think, to me, when you look at Eric Ebron, he's going to be a guy that's going to regress in the touchdowns category. So you're not going to get that guy that finished in the top 5, top 4. You're going to get that guy who maybe finishes at 11 or 12, and then you're going to get a tight end that is maybe a streaming option. And all these people drafting Eric Ebron within the first 7 rounds are going to be saying, oh, what did I just do? Now, on the flip side of it, I think that if Jack Doyle can stay on the field and stay healthy, he's the guy that can pick up the yards. He's the guy that maybe can catch 4, maybe 5 touchdowns. It's going to be a low ceiling for his his touchdown output. But if he can put up the yards and he can get the touchdowns, I think he's a guy that people are sleeping on. He's a guy that he's the starting tight end in the offense. He's the guy that gets the most snaps, and I think that a lot of people have fallen asleep on so to speak, on Jack Doyle. And I think that people are looking at him going, I don't like Jack Doyle because of this or that. But in the reality is that if he stays on the field, he's going to be a good tight end. And I also want to throw this statistic out really fast for you. The reason why I have Jack Doyle so high in my rankings is because I projected him pretty highly. Okay. They throw it to the Andrew Luck throws it to the tight end position 22% of the time on average, which is, I would say, about 6% higher than the average of the league. So he's throwing it to the tight end a lot. And if Jack Doyle ends up being on the field for a majority of the time, Ebron's probably going to catch like more. I would expect him to catch more touchdowns than Jack Doyle because he's a red zone target. But I think that Jack Doyle is going to get a majority of the targets this year if he stays on the field and stays healthy. And he could be a good sleeper tight end. Oh, no.
You done?
A little bit.
Okay. I let you talk because I know how much you love Jack Doyle, but I think it's time for you to let him go. I think it's time for you to just Rose and Jack and Titanic. And just
I will let him go. If he sucks this year, I'll let him go.
Okay.
I promise. I'm going down with the ship.
Let's see. You brought up snap count. I don't think you're entirely wrong with that. Snap count could also mean running the ball, though, too. He could just be the better blocking tight end, which he is, which doesn't equate to anything in fantasy.
Right.
He, as you said, you kept saying if healthy. That is a big if for Jack Doyle. He's never healthy at all.
Sleeper.
Yes. Yes, sleeper.
Did I project him to finish in the top 10?
I'm not.
Yes.
You did. I was going to say yeah. I'm not drafting Jack Doyle to be a starter tight end for my fantasy team. He's just not. There's too many weapons on that team.
Yeah.
I think him and Ebron, there's a chance.
There's not that many weapons.
They did add. Who did they add? Funches?
They added Funches.
And they drafted a guy too. And they have T.Y. Hilton and Marlon Mack.
Love Paris Campbell.
And they also
rookie wide receiver's not taken away from my boy Jack Doyle.
There's a third tight end that has
Ali Cox, yeah.
Yep. That everybody's in love with.
Yeah, he's going to stay on the bench.
He might, but you know what? He might be used too. And if that happens, they're using 3 tight ends. They're using 3 wide receivers. They're using running backs. Sure, Jack Doyle.
When Jack Doyle breaks out, and has a great year.
I think Jack Doyle's a good tight end. Yep. I do.
Thank you.
I don't think he's gonna be a top 10 fantasy tight end though.
Stop! Don't crush my soul.
I don't mean to, but.
Yeah, no, I love Jack Doyle. I think people are sleeping on him. I really do. I think they were burned by Jack Doyle and his injury proneness last year.
They were, and they saw what Eric Ebron did fantasy wise.
Yeah, and so I think people started sleeping on Jack Doyle. He's not even getting drafted at this point. So he's a guy if I believe in, he's a guy I can safely say, all right, my last positional pick, I'll take, before you take kickers and defenses in the 14th and 15th round. In the 13th round, you take a Jack Doyle or something like that. And so, like at that point, if you haven't drafted one of the top 3 tight ends, you're probably streaming. You're probably streaming tight ends.
You're either streaming tight ends, or you're just taking the guy that you like.
So I like Jack Doyle. I really do. I think that if he ends up what if Eric Ebron gets hurt in the preseason or something?
That changes it.
Yeah,
but as of today,
Yeah, then he gets drafted. Okay, I hope that don't happen. Who do you got for the next guy?
You know who I got? Someone who I've been on all year.
Oh, boy.
And you have kind of been hesitant. At times, you like him. At times, you don't. It's the Hawk, baby. TJ Hawkinson.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know where I have him ranked?
Where?
21.
So you have him 21. Fantasy Pros has him 22.
Yeah.
That's why I say he's getting slept on. This guy was taken 10th overall as a tight end. They want to use him like Rob Gronkowski.
8th.
Was he 8th? Okay, you just you take a tight end 8th overall.
Something like that, yeah.
You're going to use him just as much as any. You're going to use him as you have the intention of using him in your offense, like Travis Kelce. Whether he's going to work out, whether they're actually going to do that, who knows? But you're willing to take a tight end that high in the draft. Teams weren't willing to take receivers that high, and teams that usually do take receivers that high end up using them a lot. Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, I think was 14th. Like typically, you draft a quote unquote weapon that high, you're going to use him. There's not a ton of talent on this Detroit Lions team from a wide receiver standpoint. Kenny Golloway's good.
Galladay.
Is that was the guy you were talking about? You're like, there's one guy you say wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway. Slight sidetrack while I was ranting about my guy Hawkinson. He's going to be. I mean, he is currently getting slept on. I think big time. So here's tight ends that are ranked ahead of him. Is it Mark Andrews, the tight end for Baltimore?
Yep.
And Hawkinson. Jimmy Graham, Hawkinson. Rudolph, Hawkinson. Olsen, Hawkinson. Jordan Reed, Hawkinson. Jack Doyle, TJ Hawkinson. And then you get to Austin Hooper. I'd say I'd rank him ahead of Delaney Walker. I think he's going to be a top 12 fantasy tight end with top 10 fantasy tight end ceiling.
So I don't like TJ Hawkinson. I actually do like TJ Hawkinson, but not this year. My problem is that you're sitting there in your dynasty league, you stash him down. That's like he was drafted like I think on average like 103, 104 in dynasty leagues. That's fine. Go ahead, feel free. But like in redraft leagues, it's hard. Like even my love of Noah Fant, it is extremely hard for a tight end to produce in their wide receivers have a hard time producing in their first year. Tight ends even have a harder time. And I understand that TJ Hawkinson was a top 10 selection in the NFL draft.
8th overall.
It's not to me, I don't know if they're going to be able to utilize him effectively. I think he could finish as the tight end 15 or 16. And that's where I have them projected at right now. But when you look at the Detroit Lions offense, just looking at how I believe their offensive coordinator is Darrell Bevell from the Seattle Seahawks. But let me just confirm that.
Okay.
Darrell Bevell from the Seahawks. He coached the Seahawks as, I believe, the offensive coordinator in 2016, 2017, and then he didn't coach last year. In his offenses, they throw the football about 18 to 20% of the time to the tight end position, which is a little bit higher. The way they spread it out, just in how Matt Stafford has spread it out in the past, usually there's about 5% to the second tight end. So you could say 15% of the target share goes to TJ Hawkinson. At that point, I just don't see him at this point, as far as efficiency is concerned, coming out in year one and being able to produce at a high level.
So the difference, though, there is they didn't have a tight end at his level, or at least that they viewed in his level, meaning they took him 8th overall. So they view him as a guy that they think can be their Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
So
I don't
maybe
think
if they had
utilize him like that, though. That's the thing, is that everyone's going to get hyped up on Hawkinson. They're going to put him on their team. They're going to put him in the starting lineup, and then he's going to get 2 fantasy points week one.
This is where you're wrong.
He's not Gronk.
This is where you're wrong. Nobody's hyping him up. That's the problem. He's going 22nd.
Because
you
we
have
all
him
know
21st. He's going undrafted in leagues. He should not be going undrafted in leagues.
He should be going undrafted. He's a rookie tight end.
who was drafted 8th overall and is gonna be used. You know what I love.
He wasn't even
fantasy
supposed to
football?
be the top 10 tight end. Noah Fant was supposed to be.
According to you.
They just took the big white guy that could barely say words because they thought he was close to Gronk.
Wow. I love opportunity in fantasy football.
Yes.
I love opportunity.
Oh, my foot fell asleep.
He's going to have opportunity. I'm not saying he should start in your fantasy league, but I'm saying he's getting slept on.
I don't think so. I think he's exactly where he should be. Exactly where he should be.
You know how many touchdowns Gronk had his rookie year, by the way?
Who's
his second round?
T.J. Hawkinson Gronk?
No, I'm not saying that.
Is the greatest quarterback of all time throwing him the football?
No, I'm not saying that either. But Gronk also in 2010 had Randy Moss on his team and a guy named Aaron Hernandez and Wes Welker. Like, there was talent around that team too. So there's not any talent really other than their one wide receiver who's decent.
Galladay, Kerryon Johnson. They got some good guys there.
You just named two that are semi-decent. Matt Stafford's a good quarterback too. I'm liking him. Man.
I just think so. Here's the thing with me is that for a guy like rookie running backs are the only thing that I take really in drafts, and the only reason why I take rookie running backs is because their share is their share. Like if you get given the ball on if you get carries,
rookie running backs can produce. In fantasy.
You can, they can produce, and I think like if you get carries. Those translate. You are solely responsible for your carries, whereas the quarterback is responsible for throwing you the football. So if Matt Stafford doesn't feel like he has a connection between him and T.J. Hawkinson, and they have a veteran, Jesse James, who's right behind him, who wasn't bad with Pittsburgh. So if there's a better connection that he has with another tight end, I think that T.J. Hawkinson could take a hit because of that. I just think it takes a while for a guy like T.J. Hawkinson to break out. And I think the other thing is that it's efficiency. I actually rated him pretty well in terms of efficiency. I gave him 14 yards per reception and like a 5% touchdown rate on his receptions. So he's a guy that could have a really good season. I just don't think it's going to happen this year. I think that here's what'll happen, Rick. One of the guys I'm going to talk about a little bit later. He's not as highly drafted as T.J. Hawkinson, but if you look at what Hawk is going to do, I think that he's going to have a bad year this year, and people are going to be like, "Oh, well, that was disappointing," and then they're going to forget about him, and then next year
that could very well happen.
He's going to rise up. He's more of a like this year. I would consider him a deep sleeper. Like he's a guy that could have a really good fantasy season. He could have a Gronk-like season, but Gronk doesn't float around every once in a while. And there are top 10 guys that no. I honestly think it was a mistake for the Detroit Lions to draft T.J. Hawkinson in the top 10.
Probably.
And Noah Fant, to a lot of people, not just myself, was the most talented pass-catching running tight end in the class. And so, to me, I don't understand why Hawkinson was drafted at that point. He rose up after what is it called, the combine.
You know why he was drafted at that point, though, too. The Lions believed in him, and the Lions
because he's tall,
the Lions,
white,
okay,
and a brick.
That's fine, but the Lions think he's Gronk.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Yeah, but here's the thing is that the head coach is Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator, right? The offensive coordinator is from Seattle. He's not from New England.
Did Seattle ever have a good tight end?
Jimmy Graham. 2016 and 2017, Jimmy Graham played with the Seattle Seahawks, and that was when Darrell Bevell was the offense. So I think that's a reasonable comparison to what you have.
Jimmy Graham's.
I understand
best days
he wasn't. Yes, they were with another team, but
the Saints. But
I don't. I totally agree with you there.
Washed,
but in 2016 and 2017, that was supposed to be. He was supposed to be good.
And
with Seattle.
They did use.
But what does that show you? Is that they brought in Jimmy Graham and they utilized him a little bit, but he wasn't utilized the way that he should have been utilized. No. So that is not a good thing. If you
remember Jimmy Graham with the Seahawks,
they actually did Hawk for way too long.
I'll just end it on this. They did use Jimmy Graham. He just failed. Like there was a lot of they used him like for a fade route a lot in that offense. I remember because I had a Seahawks fantasy player, so for some reason I watched a ton of Seahawks football. They did try to get Jimmy Graham the ball. Yeah. He just couldn't convert.
Right. I can't talk about it anymore. But yeah, I just don't think Hawkinson. I think that I think that Darrell Bevell and his offenses didn't know how to utilize tight ends efficiently. Mm-hmm. And so to me, he might have some opportunity, but if they don't know how to utilize him efficiently, he's not going to be efficient. So I think he's going to have a good season. I think he'll finish in the top 15 of tight ends, top 16. But outside of that,
there's honestly a chance he'll finish lower.
But like, who was the 15th tight end last year?
But
no one remembers.
But again, he could finish lower.
Yeah.
But the chances of him finishing higher, I think, are higher.
Let's move on. Sense. Let's move on to
people are sleeping.
People are sleeping. I love this guy, Mike Gesicki. Now, some people are like, "Who's this?"
Oh boy,
he's my 25th ranked tight end.
Oh boy, this is what we call a sleeper.
I put him in the tier 6. He's not even going to get drafted.
Oh gosh, he's not only not going to get drafted, but there's going to be 10 tight ends ranked ahead of him that also won't get drafted.
So I like Mike Gesicki, and I'll explain to you why.
Please do.
So he's in. This is the complete opposite flip side of what I had this conversation with you about just a second ago. The new the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins is the defensive coordinator from the New England Patriots, or defensive play caller, as they like to call him.
He was essentially the defensive coordinator.
He is now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Now, a lot of you are like, "Oh, he's not going to he said the exact same thing. So, Matt Patricia is not transitioning an offense. What he brought with him was Chad O'Shea, who was a coordinator, not a coordinator, but he was I think it was a wide receiver coach or a running back coach for the New England Patriots. I believe it was wide receiver coach. So he is now the offensive coordinator and play caller for the Miami Dolphins. So if you came up in that Patriot system, and you were trained to do the things that the Patriots did, you utilize talent in certain ways.
Okay.
Mike Gesicki, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. Gesicki?
Just take a guess.
Take a guess. I'll call you Mike. He's 6'6", 247 pounds. Who does that remind you of? And he's white too.
The Big Show.
Yeah. The Big Show. 6'6", 247. He's big. He's also athletic. He had a 95th percentile 40-yard dash, a 95th percentile speed score, a 99th percentile burst score, a 99th percentile agility score, and a 100th percentile catch radius. His freaking true catch rate, according to playerprofiler.com, was 91.7%, which means his real catch rate was 68%, but that means that almost 20% of the passes getting thrown his way were just sucky butt passes that he couldn't catch. So Mike Gesicki in this offense, now getting passes thrown to him by Ryan Fitzpatrick, who does like his tight ends, in an offense that is run by Chad O'Shea, who likes to throw to tight ends, or Josh. They're saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick's winning the job right now. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, that's going to switch 9 times. But I think Mike Gesicki could reasonably finish with 80 to 90 targets, and if he converts those targets in, at a high efficiency, I think the guy could have a very, very good season. I don't want to put any numbers on it, but I think he could have a very good season. I think people are sleeping on this guy. They don't even know 90% of the people.
I have no idea who he is.
Yeah, don't know who he is, but he was a second-round draft pick as well last year. So it's like this is one of those forgotten about guys that had basically 20 receptions and 220 yards last year.
Yeah.
And he did nothing in a terrible offense that was run by Adam Gase. But to me, I think with the Chad O'Shea Patriots trained offense, that he's the same style, he's athletic, he's the same height and weight as Rob Gronkowski just about. And it's like if you have a guy similar to that, I think Chad O'Shea is going to look at him and see Gronk and utilize him in that way.
Man, we love comparing young tight ends to Gronk.
Yeah, it sucks.
Too bad he's not with us anymore.
I'm not saying he's gonna be Gronk. I'm just saying they'll utilize him similar to how they utilize Gronk. I still have him ranked 25th.
So You do have him ranked 25th.
Yeah, I do.
So
I think he's a sleeper.
Okay, here we
though.
go.
I would draft him on my
This
team.
is what else. You would? You would draft him?
Yeah, probably.
You would draft him.
Yeah, like if Jack Doyle was taken.
I want you to draft every tight end so I can have everyone that you don't take.
Yeah, that's true.
No, so
Dude, if you go, I'm gonna go as deep as possible on tight ends because maybe I'll hit.
or you'll just miss.
This
on
could be the
every
next.
single one.
This could be the next. I can't even say it.
The next chump who
George
stayed
Kittle.
Oh, we'll see.
I do like him though.
So yeah, I think people probably are sleeping on him. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's huge.
So he,
the catch radius one is the one that really caught me. Is that his arm length is 34 inches, which is 81st percentile, and the 100th percentile catch radius.
You sound like a scout at the combine that just watches the combine, like
I'm getting
DK Metcalf, and then they watch him in a game.
He is taking an increase.
It's like
he was getting picked 187. Now he's getting picked 177.
Whoa! Here we go.
Moving up the boards.
Yeah, I think people are sleeping. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
you mocking me right now?
No. People are sleeping on this guy. You're right. People don't know who he is.
I
think he should be moved up. Okay. I think
I was gonna say if I draft this guy and he goes off, I'll come back to this episode.
People are sleeping on this guy, right? He shouldn't be 25.
Yeah.
You're right. You've convinced me. He should be 24.
I almost thought I had you for real.
You do a little bit. You're making a valid point. I think
he's talented. I do agree with you. Like he's a sleeper in the context that there's probably a better chance that he sucks than there is that he's good.
Well, even if he's good,
I look at the variables.
What is his ceiling?
I look at the
for
variables
this year.
For this year,
with Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing him the ball,
streaming option.
Okay.
I don't think he's. I mean, there's always a chance for everyone to have a massive breakout year. And I don't know if that's gonna be. But like last year,
there's always a chance for anybody to have a breakout year.
Let me give you, and I do want to say this right now.
Boy.
Tight ends are. This is literally, you could argue about tight ends all day, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's true because literally from after 3 all the way down, everyone's like equal.
Oh yeah, it's a complete just crap shit.
Yeah. So George Kittle was drafted in the 5th round. He was drafted in the 5th round
of the NFL draft
in 2017. I believe that was the year he was drafted. So in his first year, he had 63 targets. He had 515 receiving yards and how many touchdowns? 2 total touchdowns. So that is like a bad season for a tight end. I mean,
fantasy wise.
Yeah, that what is that like? At 70? No, that's like 65, 70 fantasy points.
Yeah, some in that range.
He had 43 receptions in 2017. So he did pretty well in his first year. Like they utilized him, but I think he was just off people's radar because.
Well, who was their quarterback too?
I don't remember. That's what I was going to say. Is that because they didn't have a quarterback at the time? So for a guy like George Kittle, who has similar workout metrics as Mike Gesicki does.
Yeah.
When I look at him, he had a okay first year where Gesicki wasn't even used really in the passing game. George Kittle had an okay first year, and then his second year when everyone was like, we probably could have the same conversation last year around, June, and somebody was talking about George Kittle, and they're like, "Oh, I like George Kittle. George Kittle had a decent year last year. He has all these great metrics," and then and then he broke out, and everyone was like, "Okay," because he was getting drafted, freaking
undrafted.
Yeah, right? He was basically going undrafted last year. So for me, that could be Mike Gesicki. You don't have a breakout tight end like George Kittle every year. So, you try your best to predict which one it's going to happen to. And for me, I think if you got that new offense, you got an offense in Chad O'Shea that likes to utilize tight ends. You have a young second-round pick tight end in Mike Gesicki. If he can start to show himself in training camp and in practices and be that number one guy, I think he could actually have a really decent year. And to pile that on, Ryan Fitzpatrick likes to throw to tight ends, and we already know that with Cameron Brate. So if he can have that connection, we could actually have something decent here. But it's a deep sleeper in the context of the guy's probably going to bust out. Not even bust. He's probably not going to be good.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll give you.
All right.
I'm not drafting this guy in any league at all in existence.
Yep.
But I'll keep an eye on him for the waiver wire.
Yeah,
Potential. Definitely. He's one of those guys that could be like those random week 1 guys that just go off and then are just good the rest of the season. He could be one of those guys.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna do 2 more.
Okay.
Who do you got next?
I'm gonna do someone we both agree with. For once.
So we don't sit here and
so
yell
which is the first one I think so far. Austin Hooper.
There
the
it is.
hoopster. And no, we're not talking about basketball player. He's actually a football player for the Atlanta Falcons.
He's actually a football player.
So Austin Hooper is a guy who is very talented. He's improved each season he's been in the league, and I'm a fan of him. And I know you're a fan of him.
Oh, of course
I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. I think, let's see. I'm going to pull it up. I think he was going, like, he's 13th ranked in Fantasy Pros.
I think he's the 8th round right now.
Oh, is he really?
Hold on a second.
So he's moving up then.
That's in best ball leagues.
So
sorry, 14th round in redraft.
Okay, so wonderful. So this guy's going in the 4th round, 14th round.
Yeah.
So essentially undrafted in a lot of leagues. So here's a guy who, like, we've talked about after those first 3 guys, it's wide open.
Yeah.
I think Austin Hooper has as good a chance of anybody to slide into like the 5th or 6th spot at that tight end position. Mm-hmm. He scores a lot of touchdowns, and he is going to be used in that offense. Again, he's been better every year. He's another year older. It's another year of development with Matt Ryan. You're shaking your head, so I'm getting...
No. I'm sorry. I just looked at Gronk's measurables to line them up with Mike.
We're still back on the... Wow.
I might be the biggest Mike Gesicki fan.
You might be.
I might be. Like,
you gotta call him and be like, dude.
I'm gonna like friggin'. I'm gonna get him on the show.
Yeah, it's that level of love. If he gets on the show, I'm gonna just sit back. I'm not gonna say a single
You're gonna
word.
let me just.
I'll say hi and then just like move the mic away from my face and let you talk.
What were you saying about Austin?
I don't even remember what I was saying.
There he is, Hoop. We sleeping on him.
Yeah, I don't think there's like Hooper is. I think I was just saying like he's very underrated right now. He's a guy who I think. Where did he finish last year?
He finished. Let me just.
Wasn't it top 10?
Pull up the statistics. I don't think so.
Oh, it wasn't.
I don't think so.
It was very close though.
7. Yeah, top 10.
He was the 7th ranked tight end last year.
Points,
He's getting better each year.
Yeah.
And he's all of a sudden going undrafted.
So basically, if you wanted to take the statistics from last year, and I'm looking at standard, I should switch it to half PPR just to fix the numbers a little bit. But yeah, Hooper was number 6 in half PPR.
Even better.
So when you look at the numbers, right, and I'm going to break it down into tiers. Tier 1 was Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz. Tier 2, actually, you know what? Tier 1 was Travis Kelce. Tier 2 was Zach Ertz and George Kittle. And then Tier Zach Ertz, George Kittle, and Eric Ebron. And then Tier 3 was a drop-off. After number 4, you had 189 fantasy points. The next best guy was Jared Cook with 159. That's a 30-point difference, whereas everyone else was about a 20-point difference. So, to me, when you look at that drop-off, and then from 5, there's another drop-off. So, from 5 to 6, 159, Austin Hooper 6, 127. So, do you think he can jump into that 160, 170 fantasy point conversation and finish in the top 4 or 5?
Nah, I don't know.
I do think people are sleeping on him because when you do look at these half PPR points, it's very very surprising that a top 10 tight end in an offense that's going to pass it as much.
So he had 127 last year.
127 in half PPR. A guy that's gonna be in an offense. Now, Dirk Cutter, by the way, people forget this, but Dirk Cutter, the guy who was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach last year, is now the offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons. You need to keep that in mind.
Poor Devontae Freeman.
Devonta Freeman, GG. He kills running backs, by the way. I don't want to talk about that right now. We'll do that on the Bust show, but he kills running backs, that guy. But anyway, he's going to pass it a lot. And so I'm not sure. I haven't broken down the statistics of how much he throws. Well, I guess we could look at last year. O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, how much did they throw at the tight end position last year?
A lot. They did a lot.
Like Cameron Brate, he finished... O.J. Howard finished 13, and then Cameron Brate finished 19. So they had 2 tight ends in the top 20. So Hooper could be a guy.
And I think O.J. Howard played like half the year.
He could be a guy that you're getting in the 14th, 13th, 14th round that could make that leap into the top 5, into the top 4. And that's a reasonable player. Like when you look at the year before, and we were just talking about George Kittle and where he finished the year before he got drafted. You know what I mean? And he wasn't a great tight end. You know what I mean? He finished with 85 fantasy points the year before, which is a tight end 20 finish in 2017.
Yeah.
You have Austin Hooper, who's in a better situation, who was finished as the number 6 tight end. And is sitting here with a perfect situation where he can leap himself up into like the top 4. Do you think that 14th, 13th, 14th round pick can turn into George Kittle? That's the question that I think really needs to be asked. But I think the value, to me, the value for Austin Hooper is through the roof.
Even if he doesn't take that next step, if he's the exact same as what he was last year,
right?
And you're taking the 6th or 7th ranked tight end in round 14, that's pretty good.
No, it's very good. Well, let's just throw, because number 5 on the list, we'll throw the guy in the conversation because he finished right next to Austin Hooper, Trey Burton. He's one of our sleepers, and he's one of my sleepers. I think he's one of your sleepers.
Yeah, he did.
Trey Burton. Can you look up where he's going right now?
10th round.
Okay,
12-team 10th round. In a 10-team league, he's going 12th round. So
okay, so Trey Burton finished 7.
Did he?
With 120 fantasy points, 7 fantasy points behind Austin Hooper. So he's another guy that you can look at that. My question is, so when I look at these two guys, you're trying to figure out, okay, you're sitting there in the 12th round, right? And you want to use your 12th round pick on a tight end. That's what you've been planning on doing all year.
Correct.
And you have Austin Hooper and Trey Burton at your pick. Which guy are you taking?
It's close, but Austin Hooper.
So for me, I would definitely take Austin Hooper, and the reason why I say that is because I feel as though, like I said, Atlanta's going to throw the football a crap ton.
Yeah. And
so I feel like Austin Hooper is going to jump into that conversation. But you also have Trey Burton, who could be really good. I do think that the Bears' passing offense was a little bit over efficient last year, and there will be a little bit of a regression. But Trey Burton was probably their best pass catcher in that entire offense. I mean, they have a lot of good players, but they never stand out.
Yeah.
Trey Burton was probably the biggest guy to stand out in that offense. And I do think people are, Austin Hooper, people are sleeping on him. People are sleeping on Trey Burton. They're looking at Trey Burton and they're saying, oh, he didn't. A lot of these guys, these young, like Jared Cook, old as dirt.
Delaney Walker.
He's Delaney Walker. Kyle Rudolph's a little bit on the older side, but it's like now you got guys who finished 9. David Njoku. Vance McDonald's a little bit, people really like him right now. I don't really understand the hype, but you have David Njoku finished 9. He's a guy that, he's actually falling into 11th or 12th round now, and he's a guy that could be really good. Trey Burton, Austin Hooper could be really good, and you're going to have guys like Eric Ebron, probably Jared Cook fall out of the conversation. Kyle Rudolph might go up a little bit or down. I don't know, but it's like you're going to have some of these guys have an opportunity. Like Austin Hooper and Trey Burton are going to have an opportunity to jump ahead of Eric Ebron and Jared Cook.
Yeah.
And if they do that, then you're getting extreme value in late rounds.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there's even guys like I know Fantasy Pros has them ranked a little lower, but there are a few drafts where Greg Olsen is going very high.
Old man though.
And that's what I'm saying. Like a guy like him too. And you're looking the guys we just talked about, Austin Hooper and Trey Burton, finished 6th and 7th last year in half PPR, and all of a sudden people are just throwing them out the window.
Right.
It's like they're gonna have, I think, the same season as they did last year with a chance of being better.
For me, and this is my one concern with Trey Burton, is that he sits even. Like I think that there's a real possibility that he could maybe only even see a 10 fantasy point increase.
Yeah,
from the previous year.
Yeah,
Austin Hooper is the one guy that I feel like could see improvement, and I think
he can get better too. But
I think it's just, to me, it's sheer volume. It's the fact that he's coming into an offense where he already had 88 targets, and I could reasonably see him getting around 100 this year. And that's only in this offense, the amount that they throw it. Believe it or not, 88 targets is only 14% of the passing, the target share. I think you could up that to 16% and reasonably see him hit 100 targets and put up really, really good numbers. I mean, he converts he had 88 targets, 71 receptions. It's pretty good. 660 yards and 4 touchdowns. He gets targeted 17% in the red zone, and he had 9 red zone receptions out of those 71 receptions, which is like almost 10% of that. So for me, I think he will see improvement. I think if he catches more touchdowns, he's as good as gold.
Yeah.
And I think he could finish in the top 10, or higher than where he was last year, which was 6. I think he could finish 4 or 5. But
see, I don't think he can take an insane leap or jump into the top 4.
He's not going to get into the top 3.
Or top 3.
It's not hard to get in the top 4.
He might get 4th. He might get 4th. You're right.
Because still got Evan Ingram and Hunter Henry to deal with too, because they didn't play much last year at all.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Hooper finished above those guys.
Me neither.
I think Evan Ingram might. I'm kind of higher on him, but yeah, I mean, just the reason I don't know if he can take a massive leap is just because the amount of weapons.
Right.
And even if they throw the ball a lot more this year, like you were saying, I think that just means more targets for Calvin Ridley, more targets for Julio Jones, more targets for Hamilton New, and maybe a few more targets for Austin Hooper, but how many?
Right.
So,
I mean,
I still like him.
There it is.
And considering he's going in the 14th round,
I have him ranked.
Are sleeping.
I have him ranked 8. So we will see how Austin Hooper's season breaks down. There are a couple more sleepers that we had, but we weren't able to get to them. I know you had Jordan Reed. I have Noah Fant. So, I mean, honest to God, like after the top 3, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot, and you could totally there are some good tight ends: Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, like I mentioned, David Njoku, guys that should finish in the top 6 or 7.
Yeah,
but you just don't know if that's going to happen. And so it's like, for me, when you're talking about the late rounds, there are some guys reasonable. Like I'm definitely going to take a look at Austin Hooper and Trey Burton as we stats searched live on the show. You start to like certain guys, but you have to figure out, are those guys going to get targeted? I think Trey Burton could be a guy that falls down the list a little bit, and people go, oh, well, I drafted him. And then I don't know if that's possible for Austin Hooper just because of the target share that he'll probably have this year. So overall, it's kind of a crapshoot to pick a tight end. Like if you hit on a tight end, you can brag all day.
Yeah.
If you
pretty much
message us on Twitter and tell us what tight ends you want.
Yeah.
And if you hit on them, that'll be
I mean, for all we know, the tight end that's going off this year is like Kyle Rudolph.
You don't know. That'll do it for the tight end sleepers for 2019. Be sure to listen next week as we talk about the wide receiver sleepers and the running back sleepers. It's going to get crazy. Those are the positions that you really have to look at because those make the decision on whether or not your team is a success in 2019. You got any closing thoughts for us, boss?
Dude, you sleeping on the Hawk.
Always. I'll stay very much asleep on the Hawk.
I'll make sure to tweet you when he does good this year.
See you Tuesday, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.